Hey everybody, before we get to today's chat, jot down a note for yourself to head over to don'tforgettolaugh.com to check out our fundraiser that we're doing for the Alzheimer's Association. It's a comedy night that we're going to be doing COVID or Shine. So if we're unable to gather together in person, we're going to get together online for this event. We're scheduled for Wednesday, July 22nd, and it's don'tforgettolaugh.com for all the details. Hope you enjoy today's chat. Hey everybody, Ken Hendricks with Home Instead Senior Care. Thanks so much for joining me again today. Today my guest is Karen Lievense. Karen is the owner of Downsizing Made Simple, an organization with the aim to help folks make smooth transitions to more safe and accommodating living arrangements as they age. While so much has changed for the community of people that we serve, given concerns around COVID-19, with more elaborate safety protocols and various ways of recommending limiting social interactions, the need for safe and accommodating living arrangements has certainly not changed. And so we'll be chatting about this a bit today. Please welcome my friend Karen Lievense. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Ken, good morning. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Likewise, and as I said before, the need for safe and accommodating living arrangements for folks hasn't changed with all that's going on these days. But for folks that aren't familiar with who you are and what you do, would you mind giving just an overview of the types of service you provide and how the current climate has called for a modified approach?
Sure. I've been an interior designer for almost 32 years, but a few years ago, I decided to create more of a service-based business with seniors moving into independent or assisted living. I think we need to love our homes and feel safe and nurtured in our homes at any age. I think it's especially important for our seniors as they're aging and having physical and sometimes cognitive challenges. So I basically, in a nutshell, recreate the home that our seniors have been loving living in for decades sometimes in a much smaller footprint. Sometimes my clients go from 3,000 square feet to 850 square feet, but they still want it to feel like home, and it needs
Yeah.
to feel comfortable and personal and nurturing to them. And of course, they need to feel safe, it needs to be organized, and it needs to function the way they have liked their other home functioning. So, for example, if they're crafters or if they love playing cards with friends, if they love reading or listening to music or needlepoint, I help them recreate those functions in their new home. I help them decide what to take to their new place, what will fit. I help them perhaps enhance the safety or lighting in their new spaces with grab bars or enhanced lighting or whatever. We hire the movers and help with the packing process and get them moved in, get the beds made, get the art hung, and within about 48 hours, hopefully, they're feeling like home in their new home.
That's great. You cover everything from A to Z. How has this current climate of COVID-19 and the ways that different communities are addressing, keeping folks safe, how has that affected what you do and what ways are you having to modify things?
Well, you're bringing up just the point that's on all of our minds. I feel like COVID-19 is an app that's running in the background all the time now. Like everything we're doing and saying, all of our businesses are being run through this filter of safety protocols. The one thing that concerns me right off the bat is the fear factor that a lot of my clients, I'm sure your clients are experiencing. There's already enough fear for many of them with changes in their lives. But now, if they watch the news, there's definitely an atmosphere of fear that they have to deal with. And I hate seeing that.
Well, it's very true. I mean, one of the things that's coming up a lot in conversations I'm having with folks, and I'm reminding myself of it personally, is the need to limit my interactions with media sometimes so that I'm not really exasperating myself with additional,
Yes.
you know, I mean,
Yeah,
there's only so much we can do day to day with the information that we have about what's going on. So,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think a lot of our seniors are being isolated now, which is very concerning. You know, we know there's a connection between socializing and stimulation and longevity and wellness, and that's being compromised. In addition to their lack of autonomy and freedom. You know, a lot of people that are still able to drive used to get in their cars and go to restaurants or museums, meet friends for a hike, shop, and now they're losing a lot of that, their last bit of freedom and autonomy. So this is not a good indicator, you know, for our most physically vulnerable population as well. So to answer your question about new protocols, all of the senior communities that I am aware of in Santa Fe are going out of their way to install and implement really robust and heartful protocols to protect their residents. They're doing a great job. They're delivering meals to their front door, which involves another huge layer of effort. They're also creating really creative ways to stimulate and entertain the seniors at home, facilitating window meetings with family members, that kind of thing. So I think they're all doing the best they can possibly do with their number one priority of keeping the residents safe. In terms of what I do for my clients, unfortunately, I can't do my business on Zoom like a lot of people can do. It's a very in-person, physical, up close, literally hand-holding service that I provide. And the physical proximity I have with my clients is invaluable for me to determine their state of mind and their physical and cognitive well-being during the process, and for me to report back to grown children or family members who may not be present. So I do have to be physically engaged with my clients. I know we're aware that a lot of businesses are making the transition to continuing via Zoom, and we're having this wonderful conversation now, and that's a real asset. My work with my clients is very personal and it's very intimate. I have to be in their homes to decide what furniture they're going to take. I have to build a relationship with them so I can see what is normal for them physically and cognitively. I need physical proximity to them for this. And so I often report back to their children, grown children or families, how they're doing. I need to see what furniture we're going to take and not take. I need to look at their artwork. So there's definitely the normal protocols now of mask wearing and hand washing. I have a touchless thermometer that I use for myself and my clients when we start. I think the biggest change for me is working with the movers. There's a period of time between when we've packed and when the client is moved into their new residence, where I strive now to have the client living someplace else for a few days so that they don't have any contact with the movers at all. Even though the movers are wonderful about, again, the mask wearing and those protocols, I'd rather not have the contact between movers and my clients if possible. So we'll have to find other ways for the client to spend a few nights with family. Sometimes the communities they're moving into have an apartment they can rent them for 3 days. But we want to mitigate any unnecessary contact with the outside world. I myself am still continuing to quarantine as much as possible. So I don't bring in any more, as little contact from the outside world into my life and my well-being as possible. And I used to make several stops perhaps before I'd see my clients. Now they are the first stop of my day, and I do any kind of other errands afterwards. So like I said, everything is sort of run through this filter of C-19 safety protocols.
I like that analogy that you painted of it being kind of like an app that we're all running. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a great analogy. We are kind of always everything from when we do make a stop and all the things that are going through our minds about, you know, sanitizing our hands and making sure, I don't know if my wife calls it a Batman moment when when you get out of your car and then you start walking and then you realize you forgot your mask and then you have to go back.
Yes. It's a whole new world. And so to do all this with my clients, but not overlay a feeling of fear, I want it to be more of a support. We're all supporting them with this. We're not trying to have them feel fearful. It's a challenge, but I think we're all rising to it, and it's a noble goal just to protect them.
Well, I think it's great that you're finding a way to have those interactions with your clients to make these very necessary transitions. One of the things you mentioned was the unfortunate irony of the fact that a lot of people are making the decision to transition to assisted living communities for additional social engagement, whereas for very understandable reasons with everything that's going on, most of these communities have a quarantine period and are
Mm-hmm.
limiting social interactions within the community to stave
Mm-hmm.
off any danger that if the virus were to show up in the community, that it would be transferred easily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is certainly ironic, but understandable. What are your thoughts around that? Like, I know you're thinking about that a lot.
Well, I'll just, as an example, I moved one gentleman just after the quarantining started, and he had been living alone. His wife had died a year before. He was living alone for a year in a very large home. So this was a great move, and he was all on board, and his children were thrilled. And no sooner do we get him moved in when this quarantining starts. So I suggested that he and his children create a Zoom cocktail hour, as often as they wanted to. He's got 5 kids throughout the country. So that's one way to do it, and it's effective because you are making facial contact and you're having a conversation. It's the next best thing. Um, some people are having, I mentioned window meetings where you've got one person on one side and on the other, and you've seen this on TV. You're certainly not having hugging or any kind of physical contact, but maybe you're talking on your phone if you can't really hear through the window. There's that. Phone calls, maybe more frequent phone calls are a good thing. I call a lot of my ex-clients and just check in on them and say, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing? A couple of them, it's been a while since I moved them and I don't remember who I am. And I'll say something like, it's been a while since we've met, but you had great stories about your time at Los Alamos. I'd love to hear those stories again. So there's lots of little ways that we can connect. And the communities, I think, are doing a great job of doing this as well. So I give them great bonus points for thinking outside the box.
We're starting to see the cities that we work in, we're starting to see them starting to open up a little bit more. And of course, the communities of folks that we work with are going to be the last to really kind of loosen some of
Mm-hmm.
the precautions that they're keeping in place. But all in all, I mean, they are starting to open up a little more in the sense of getting residents out of their apartments, getting them together with smaller groups of
Mm-hmm.
people. But I'm just really proud of how well our cities have done. Like New Mexico in general has done really well with this, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, the Santa Fe, the northern New Mexico area seems to be doing really, really well with this. And our communities are responding really well when they have an exposure. If there's a case, they're really on top of it, working with the Department of Health. And it's just, it's very nice to be in this climate. I mean, of course, all of us have heard some of the stories of communities where the virus has just run rampant, and
Mm-hmm.
just really thankful that we haven't seen anything like that here. They seem to be managing things really well and taking precautions. I'm sure it's due to diligence and just being fortunate and lucky, that we're not seeing a lot of cases in our area. But
You and I are part of the Santa Fe Healthcare Network, which I'd like to reference a little more later, but it's wonderful to be part of a community that really has the number one priority of the wellness and stability and health of our senior population here. And I think it takes a group effort. It takes many different layers of that intention. And so I think we're just commenting on how we are seeing that in the wonderful myriad senior communities we have in Santa Fe.
hmm So I know you recommend that folks really take their time and not rush in this process of making the transition. Of course, I can see the value in this. I mean, actually, the current climate, as we were talking about even before we started recording our conversation, we were talking about how the current climate of things has caused us all as a culture to slow down a bit, which can be helpful. But I'm thinking a lot of the people that are needing to make a transition to different living arrangements are needing to do so because of health issues that have impacted their ability to remain at home safely.
Hmm.
So obviously with this, I'm seeing a correlation where services like what Home Instead provides, home care can be uh, a difference maker with helping folks to feel like they don't have to be hurried. They can
Hmm.
have someone come into the home and help them with necessary things to remain safely at home in the meantime while they're taking their time to do all their homework. But
Hmm.
what are some of the major reasons that you recommend taking so much time? I think you said like a minimum of 4 months if possible, um, to make a decision like this. And am I right in seeing that home care can serve folks in this process?
You're absolutely right. I think home care, I think we can all agree that keeping our seniors in their homes, safely in their homes for as long as possible, is the number one priority. Sometimes that isn't enough. Sometimes they need another level of care or safety, and so that's where moving into independent or assisted living comes in. Ken, the reason I say allow 4 months, certainly the move itself doesn't take 4 months, but there are so many parts and steps in the chronology to getting from their home into a new community that having time to make peace with it and make the incremental adjustments to the process helps people avoid overwhelm. I always say it's better to make this decision out of choice than out of necessity. If you can allow yourself time to know that this is ahead of you, this decision is ahead of you, and to have the time to do your research, to make choices, to be an autonomous choice about so many of the questions that come up, rather than waiting until too late when your physical or cognitive situation has declined. So now it's dire and
Yeah,
somebody else is making these decisions for you and you're rushed quickly into a new home. I think you can just feel, as I've described these two scenarios, that one is so much better than the other. And
absolutely.
so, and I also say that anytime you decide to relocate and make that move is the best time. So as long as you're getting the care you need at the time you need it, is great. But I'm curious to know from you, what are some of the triggers from your end that you've seen your clients decide to go from living at home with home care into independent or assisted living?
The main triggers that come to mind would be when cognitive issues like dementia, when there's behaviors associated with someone's disease that become very, very difficult for individual
Mhm.
caregivers to manage in the home environment. That's one reason for certain. Others would be financial, means because having one-on-one care 24 hours a day is not as feasible for some folks, and it's more financially feasible to move into
Mm.
an independent or assisted living community. But we are, for a lot of people, that have the resources, we're able to tag team with other types of services that can assist within the home, whether it's home health with physical therapies and different types of modalities that can be done in the home, and then hospice as well, with that being such a great service in our country that we have. We can we can work with a team to help someone stay at home for their entire life, all the way,
Mhm.
up until the end. So there are different reasons that families decide that making a move would be the best option. Um, and sometimes, I mean, with an assisted living, you have access to nursing care throughout, all day, every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that can make a really big difference for folks that have more complicated health problems that just need more, um, eyes on in a medical sense. So
So yeah, so what I'm getting from this conversation we're having is that keeping our clients at home safely as long as possible is ideal, and it also provides a great sort of springboard to making that decision to move into assisted living if that comes up. Starting the conversation as early as possible, whether it's with your spouse, your partner, or with your family, or someone who can um, guide you lovingly through making this decision, is a great first step. And it does involve a conversation. A conversation is a process where you bring someone willingly to a choice of seeing that is the best thing for them. Because ideally, we want our seniors to be in choice about moving. That's always ideal. So I think what you do is essential. Um, my mom was able to benefit from home health care and passed away at home with hospice. And so I feel so blessed to know that exists for some people, and feel that really is the goal. So thank you for all you do.
well, likewise. I really love how your services are really well rounded and you help people through the whole process, both emotionally and logistically. There's a lot to deal with on both of those fronts. So, what are some of the most common hurdles that you see come up for folks for whom downsizing and making a move seem to be the best option?
Um, Number one, I think, is the fear of change, which I think any of us at any age can relate to. A lot of my clients have been in their homes for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes. And so leaving that home and going to a new place, starting from scratch, not knowing what life will be like, they have fear of change. And so I think that's easy to relate to. Being in de- denial about their condition is another issue. I know from my own experience with my mom, she was not honest with her decline. She was not aware about how fast and quickly she was declining. So I think there is denial about, for a lot of our seniors, their cognitive and physical decline. I think having a false sense of security that they're doing fine in their homes or able to muddle through or get by. And often there's sort of a false sense of security from the people around them, people who are supporting them in their quote unquote independence, creating sort of a buffer and sort of a comfort zone with shopping or cooking or cleaning for them to give them the feeling that they are independent. And then all of a sudden they decline quite quickly, and that false sense of security isn't there anymore. I think some of my clients are paralyzed by the overwhelm of the move itself. And so I try to give them a chronology, baby steps of how that might look. But I think we've all been in the scenario of trying to support our parents in their independence, and keeping them feeling like they are safe and independent, and then having to watch them decline and having to address that.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen all those things over the years working with this same population of folks, and it's it's understandable. I think that a lot of change that comes our way is just difficult to swallow. It's difficult to accept, and so we can kind of delude ourselves that it's not really taking place as a way of coping, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
produce the best results. I think that villainizing change in our lives is only going to perpetually frustrate us because everything
Mm-hmm.
changes. That's whether you stay in your home or whether you move to another community. There's going to be the rest of your life is going to be full of changes.
Mm-hmm.
The more we can embrace those changes and accept them, I think the brighter those years are going to be.
I totally agree. It was well stated. And the cruel irony here is that for our clients, um, the longer you procrastinate in making this decision, the harder it's going to be. And I've seen this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I met with a gentleman. I moved a couple of years ago, but I met with them over the course of a couple of years in them making this decision. And every time he would bring it up to his wife, who had dementia, she would cry. She would break down and cry. And so that ended the conversation because he didn't want to be the cause of his wife crying. And I totally got this.
Yeah.
But then I saw her situation decline so much. And of course, he's getting older at the same time, having to handle this.
Yeah.
So, um, I like to work with the ideal scenario if possible, and that really is seeing down the years. You're thinking, yes, you or your spouse, your partner, yourself, you're going to need a level of care that you may not get at home. I'm going to start rewiring my neuronal pathways to accepting this decision. I'm going to make peace with it. I'm going to choose to do it rather than have my children force me to do it as a loving gift to them. Because really, the more in choice our clients can be with this, the more we take that pressure and that job off of our families or friends around us. Um, the more time we have to research where we're going to be moving and look at the amenities, get our financial house in order, um, sort of embrace it as an adventure and not as a compromise or a punishment. So you can see as I'm saying this, there's just so many benefits to being a choice about it when possible. And we know that it isn't always possible.
Well, just that perspective that you're sharing, I can see how that's part of the emotional process of helping people through these types of decisions. And so with that, how can folks get in touch with you to set up a consultation? I know you're doing virtual consultations over Zoom to start the conversation, that important part that you were talking about before.
Mhm.
How do you go about that, or how do folks reach out to you?
One of the gifts, you and I were talking before we started this, some of the gifts that we're receiving now from this COVID-19, this pandemic, mentality is that we're all coming together to be more supportive and kind and providing service where we can. So in that spirit, I would love to have whatever conversations people need to have about this downsizing process, whether they're at the very beginning of it and just need someone to talk to, whether it's a grown child of a senior or whether you yourself are thinking of making this move. I think sometimes just talking to someone, sort of getting rid of the fears and being able to make peace with it is a good first step. So I'm happy to do that via phone or have a Zoom meeting. Um, and I'm really putting no limit on these phone conversations or these Zoom meetings. And if you need to build a relationship very gradually by talking, I'm all on board for that. I also have lots of great support materials. I have a library of materials about different aspects of the downsizing process. For example, how to have that conversation with your parents. It's a hard conversation, but support
Yeah.
on how to do that. I'm happy to mail that out to you, so you can call me or email me, and we can arrange something. And I would just love to support people in this major life transition, whatever way I can.
Well, thank you so much for everything you do, Karen. I love how you put your heart into it and how your sincerity just emanates, like when you talk about it, your passion for people, making this process as easy as possible, making it enjoyable, and making it successful so that they land in a place where they're happy and they're feeling
Mm-hmm.
fulfilled and they're feeling content with entering into the next stage of their adventure in life. So I thank you for everything you do. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today about it. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon, either virtually or in person, hopefully.
Well, thank you. And before we close, I wanted to give a shout out to the Santa Fe Healthcare Network because we're both on the board and we both know the value that we provide to our senior community. So may I give the website address?
Yes, please do.
So it's www.santafehealthcarenetwork.com. It's a wealth of support information. There are wonderful blog posts on there that I think can support a lot of the questions that people have in this process. I wrote a blog post about the 3 scenarios that are common about the downsizing process. You can learn a little bit from that. If you'd like to reach me, my phone number is 575-779-6826. And my email address is downsizingmadesimple@gmail.com. You can write me, give me your address, and I'll be glad to put some support materials in the mail to you.
Thanks so much, Karen. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, dear Ken. Bye-bye.